Hello everybody, welcome to episode 166 of Show For You, where today we'll be going over volume 7 of Fire Punch. So this is kind of what the volume coverage looks like. You got the spawn there, then you got Agni on the back. And so this volume starts off, obviously, directly where we left off in volume 6. And so with this, we actually get to see as Agni is speaking with like Tenna and stuff like that. Tenna once more expresses her desire to see Fire Punch die. And so we see as Agni goes out into the forest and he plans to kill himself. But we see he's unable to do so because once again he reminisces on Luna telling him to live, and therefore he's like, I can't die. So he ends up living, and we actually get to see a 10-year time skip. And so after this time skip, we see as Agni has been living amongst the refugees that he found prior. All the women like Leon or Leno, Tenna, Judah, and all of them. Well, Luna, Judah. I'm just gonna call her Judah because she is Judah. But yeah, so we see this, and we see that he's just been kind of helping around. Ultimately, he ends up growing back his arm, and so they know that he has regenerative abilities and all of that. I mean, they knew he had those prior, but still. But yeah, so we see all of this, and we ultimately also get to see that Tenna, in fact, had her child, and its name is Oya, or O-I-A, I'm just going to say Oya. But yeah, so all of this ends up playing out, and we see as everything appears to be going pretty swell. We see that Oya is deeply enamored with, well, not enamored, but she loves Agni. She loves him like a big brother. She calls him Big Brother. And so we see that Agni has kind of found his place among this, but we also get to see from his perspective that he is in fact just suffering through this. He has decided to fake it till he makes it, even though he knows he's never gonna make it. So he's just been faking this entire time. He like mentions about how when he eats he can't even taste anything, but he still eats anyways. And he can't even sleep, but he still closes his eyes because he's faking it for everyone. And he is suffering. And so we see, and this continues to play out, and ultimately everything keeps going on until one day we get to, as we one chapter, we get to see a perspective of what is going on with Agniism and the cult of Agni. And we see that, in fact, Sun has become now like a almost Christ figure among the Agni group. We see that he mentions about how he is the most in tune with Agni. He knows what Agni feels, what Agni thinks. And we see as he ultimately ends up condemning a dude from Behemdorg to death because of his actions against Agniism. And we see this, and we also then get to see who he's conspiring with. We see this got this one guy, and we also see the Ice Witch Judah looking creature that actually caused Judah to be turned into a tree and all that. Yeah, so we see that in fact they are all planning to ultimately go and acquire Judah so they can return eternal warmth to the land. Since after the tree formed, we did actually see a betterment of the climate, but it's beginning to decrease once more. And if nothing is done, then all the world will turn to ice. So we see this, and ultimately you also get to see as Nenato is helping around with this, but Nenato honestly isn't a big fan of how Sun is handling things, but Sun is dead set on fully believing in Agni. So we see as one day Agni and Judah are out doing their thing. Well, actually Oya are out doing their thing, and we see, I think it's Oya. I think it's actually all three of them, but they're out there doing their thing, and ultimately we see as someone ends up calling for Agni. So we see as he ends up walking off in the distance, is in fact Nenato. And Nenato is here, and she's like, yo, I need you to give up Judah. And we see that she's like, I need you to give up Judah, and we will let everyone, well, we won't necessarily let everyone live, but if you give up Judah here, you can go ahead and escape with everyone, so you won't end up getting killed in the end. Because they know you're here, and they will kill you. So, because what they did was they got all of the refugees from Behemdorg who had suffered because of Agni, or because of Fire Punch, and they had sent them on this mission, so they were going to kill Agni. And so, after that, we then see as she's like, okay, you can either do this, or you can stay with Judah and be killed and have her captured and leave her alone in this world. And after this, we see that they end up separating, and Agni ends up going back. And we see as time progressed, and all this plays out, and ultimately we see as Agni is talking with Judah, and he's like, yo, if there was a group of people, and there was me, but you didn't know me, like you didn't think that you were that I was your brother or anything, would you save the group of people if it meant that I would die, or would you let the group of people, including like Oya and stuff like that, freeze to death for me? And we see that Judah in fact says that she would pick Agni because she is in love with him. And we then see as they share a kiss, and then after that, things progress. But she reveals here that she in fact knows that Agni is not her brother, and she's been faking it the whole time as well. She knows that Agni is not her brother because she knows that she would remember something before her amnesia if Agni were her brother, and she doesn't. Therefore, she knows that Agni is not her brother. So she's like, okay, it's okay for us to love each other now, even though that is not a necessary rule in the Fire Punch world. But yeah, so we see this plays out, and then ultimately they end up partaking in coitus. And we see after this, they're just kind of chilling. And then the three women who are also at the compound end up pulling up and like, yo, y'all are siblings? You need to get out of here. You cannot be doing that. But they're also like, yeah, they called you Agni as well. We know who Agni is. Agni is Fire Punch. And we see as they plan to take all of them out, but then we in fact see that the people from the Agni, or the cult of Agni, the Agniism group, have come. And they are here, and Minato is like, yeah, I knew that he was not going to return Judah or give up on Judah, because if he would have been willing to do so, he would have done it right then and there, but he didn't. So they ended up sending him in. We see as they start to kill people, and ultimately, we see as they send in this masked man who is able to, like, coat himself in metal and, like, protrude metal from him. And so we see this, and then ultimately we see as everything starts fighting, and Agni ultimately has to push himself to such a high degree that he, in fact, hold up. Okay, yeah, I was just looking to make sure I was on the right page. But he, in fact, has to start, like, putting the beat down. He puts the beat down on this dude, the masked man, and ultimately he prepares to kill him. And we, in fact, see that Tenna actually survives all of this, but Judo actually did get captured. We see as Judo is decapitated, and she is taken away with her head, because obviously they need to just regenerate the rest of her body. But yeah, so we see she's taken away, and we also see as Agni is preparing to kill the masked guy, but he's like, okay, crap, I can't kill her here, because previously when Judah had been talking to him about how she didn't want Fire Punch to die, because, well, Agni had proposed the hypothetical. He's like, what if I was Fire Punch? And she was like, then I just asked you not to kill people. And this is where Agni thinks back. He's like, okay, I can't kill people now. And we see, in fact, that Tenna apologizes to him, or not, but forgives him, not apologizes. And we see and she's like, I realize that you're not Fire Punch anymore, so why not stay with us, give up on Judah, and regroup with us? And Agni cannot accept this. He ultimately, in his mind, ends up kind of falling and breaking back down to following Judah because she looks like Luna. And so we see as he ultimately ends up going in and punches Tenna. And this was not a good move. We see that, in fact, Oya was watching, and she has more loyalty to her mother than she does to Agni. And then from this, she ends up using her fire powers, which obviously she's a ancestor of Doma's, and it apparently has the same effect as Doma's, because I don't know exactly what Oya is, but Oya ends up casting the fire onto Agni, and he once again becomes Fire Punch, encoded in flames, but he doesn't end up killing Tenna or Oya as we see here. He just says, yo kid, he says like something like, don't use that fire ability much more or anything like that. What does he say? Oh crap, what is it what he says? Never use those flames again, they don't go out. Okay, yeah, that's what he says. And we really see that he's not affected like at all when he becomes Fire Punch again. Like, he looks scared there, but then like we also get to see that he's just nonchalant there. Yeah, so then for the final chapter, we actually get to another perspective back in the area where the Agni cult is living. And we see that, in fact, Sun is growing tired of the two, I guess, advisors that he has. And he ultimately ends up killing both of them because he's like, you know what? You're heretics to Agni. I'm the only one who truly knows what Agni thinks. And we see that he here becomes a tyrant. And he kind of briefly speaks with Minato, nothing really important. Well, actually, Minato speaks with Judah on the ride. And ultimately, Judah ends up resigning herself to giving up her life. So, okay, yeah. So, hold on, what was this? And then, so, yeah, she ends up giving up her life. So now, so she can pay for her crimes because she remembers the guilt prior to her amnesia. But yeah, so we see that. Ultimately, then I said, we see as Sun kills both of his advisors, he ends up coming out and he's like, alright, let's end up taking Judah, turning her to a tree, and making a world where this cold will go away forever. And that's where the volume ends. So yeah, great volume. I'm ready to read volume 8 because luckily I forgot all the spoilers that were in my volume 6 that was a misprint. So yeah, I'm really ready to read volume 8 whenever I can find it. And yeah, that was honestly great as per usual. Fujimoto never misses on this stuff. So yeah, that's all that really was for volume 7 of Fire Punch. That's all I really have for episode 166 of Shelf Review. So thank you very much for watching.